We live in interesting times. Today's stories. Violent unrest in Chile enters fifth week. Santiago's metro bears the scars of Chile's recent unrest. 22 years old and on the brink of death from vaping. Brexit shaking traditional loyalties in an unpredictable UK election. Canada's Trudeau unveils domestically focused cabinet. Canucks take on the Colorado Avalanche in Vancouver's Rogers Arena. Simon Fraser University clan take on the Central Washington Wildcats. Toronto Raptors versus Orlando Magic checking in after an impressive road trip. Cirque du Soleil's Lucia makes debut in Vancouver. I'm Kenny Aquino with Eagle News, broadcasting from our Vancouver studio, bringing you stories from around the globe. Thousands of Chileans gathered in Santiago's Plaza Italia for the fifth Friday since the explosion of unprecedented social crisis in the country. The demonstrators shouted slogans against the police and President Sebastián Piñera, as the government denied any human rights violations during the conflict. As of Friday, the death toll from violent unrest stood at 23. Looting and demonstrations took place in cities across the South American nation. An agreement on a political roadmap that will see Chile draft a new constitution has halted neither the anger nor the bloodshed. Since October 18th, furious Chileans have been protesting social and economic inequality. They are also angered by an entrenched political elite that comes from a small number of the wealthiest families in the country, among other issues. Protester Claudia Ortolani says they will continue to demonstrate.
No hay que bajar los brazos y hay que seguir viniendo, hay que seguir manifestándose porque no hemos conseguido absolutamente nada y además sigue la represión y además están firmando acuerdos truchos como el Acuerdo por la Paz.
Nicolas Medina says politicians are lining their pockets at the expense of ordinary Chileans.
Al final el descontento sobrepasa a Piñera, va más allá de Piñera, tiene que ver con el establishment, tiene que ver con una clase política que se ha virtualmente llenado los bolsillos durante 30 años y esto viene de antes porque este es el sistema que la dictadura designó y legitimizó o legalizó mediante una constitución espuria, trucha que se hizo en los 80.
And this protester calls the government oppressive.
Lo fundamental han sido las medidas represivas del gobierno. Todo el tiempo ha tratado de combatir la rebelión y combatir la posibilidad del poder constituyente popular con represión, para tratar de desmovilizarnos, de generar miedo. Esto ha sido durísimo, el costo que hemos tenido que pagar es muy alto.
The crisis is the worst in 3 decades of Chilean democracy and has led to around 2,000 injuries. We take a close-up look at how the protests are actually hurting ordinary people in the Chilean capital of Santiago. Commuters are coping with broken turnstiles, destroying escalators, damaged light fixtures, and vandalized train stations. These are the scars left by a month of violent protests on the capital's metro system. The damage is a symbol of a segregated city where some stations in wealthier neighborhoods remain unscathed by the social unrest. Vendor Irma Monsalve says the damaged train stations have driven customers away.
El hecho que hayan incendiado el metro nos afecta mucho, no tan solo a mí, a las otras familias también, porque las tuvieron que cambiar de acá, porque acá no se vende. Anda muy poca.
Pablo Espinosa, a digital security employee, says the vandalism is hurting the average citizen, not the privileged.
Hay demasiada desigualdad acá en el país. Ya, pero esperando que esto mejore, bueno, no estoy muy de acuerdo del tema de los destrozos porque en el fondo destruyeron el metro, un medio de transporte súper grande que dejó mucha gente tomando micro, esperando colectivos, horas, mucha pérdida.
Graciela Garcia, a public relations specialist, says the protesters are just making life difficult for the people they're supposedly standing up for.
Me sorprendí bastante, yo creo que a todos los chilenos, más allá de la opinión que tengamos con respecto al tema del estallido social, nos complicó que el metro fuera un blanco tremendo, sabemos que fue en forma simultánea y por supuesto también.
And Felipe Bravo says he can't understand why the metro was targeted.
Esto francamente rompe todos los parámetros, cualquier cosa que hubiésemos esperado. Para nosotros el metro es un sistema de transporte, un servicio de transporte que es muy querido por las personas, presta un servicio.
The so-called safe alternative to smoking tobacco has nearly cost a New York man his life. 22-year-old Gregory Rodriguez spent 2 months unconscious and hooked up to an artificial lung. The ordeal brought him to the brink of death in just a few hours. Rodriguez says he started buying black market vaping materials to save money.
When I first started to vape, I would just buy them on the street. You know, we just get some contact information, and generally they were about $40 a cart. And but about a few months ago, I realized that I can buy cards on the online black market, and that allowed me to get 25 vapes for $400, which comes out to $16 a vape.
The computer science student says he began to notice the effects of the cheap products.
Start to feel like very ill, start to feel very sick, like physically. The symptoms of a stomach virus, a stomach flu, it was vomiting and diarrhea, all the symptoms of a basic flu.
Rodriguez says he couldn't believe vaping was the cause of his illness.
Throughout my entire sickness, I did not want to believe that it was the vapes. It wasn't until I woke up after the 3-day coma that both the doctors and my mother told me what had happened and what caused me to be in the coma.
Vaping, already criticized as a gateway to tobacco or other addiction, it is facing unprecedented scrutiny amid a mysterious epidemic linked to e-cigarette use that has killed 39 and sickened more than 2,000 mostly young people in the U.S. Lung specialist Dr. Mangal Narasimhan says Rodriguez had almost no lung capacity.
We were unable to use his lungs really to oxygenate him at all, and all of his oxygenation was done outside of his body. So I would say 70–80% of his lungs were damaged at the time he came to us.
Narasimhan says vaping has a devastating effect on the lungs.
It takes smokers many years to develop the lung damage, and the lung damage they have is usually irreversible damage that doesn't get better. This seems to be more of an inflammatory response of some kind, very, very quick on onset, and seems to go away relatively quickly as well. So it seems to be a very different type of illness than longtime smokers get.
Health officials say they believe the epidemic was linked to a thickening agent called vitamin E. While the Conservative Party is ahead in the polls, the UK's general election remains one of the most unpredictable in decades. One reason for that is that many voters are now more attached to their positions on Brexit than to traditional political parties. It's an issue that both the Labour and Conservative parties are having to think about. After months of promising to run candidates in all 650 constituencies in December's UK election, Brexit Party leader Nigel Farage announced a change of plan on a visit to the coastal town of Hartlepool.
The Brexit Party will not contest the 317 seats the Conservatives won at the last election.
Farage said he wants to avoid splitting the pro-Brexit vote with the Conservatives. The Brexit Party is still running here in Hartlepool, where Labour has held the seat since 1964, but the area's high unemployment and strong support for leaving the EU in the 2016 referendum is making some Labour voters reconsider their party loyalty.
I was Labour all my life. I was a union woman. I was a very adamant person, but now it's that.
It's most unpredictable that I've known it for a lot of years because people are that disillusioned.
But it's not just Leave voters who are rethinking their choices. Sam Gyimah was a Conservative MP who left the party over its support for Brexit. Now he's standing as a Liberal Democrat in a London seat that's currently held by Labour. He dismisses the idea that this could split the Remain vote and give an advantage to the pro-Brexit Conservatives.
The idea that we only take votes from the Labour Party misunderstands what is going on in the country. Liberal Democrats are pulling votes from the Conservatives and from the Labour Party as the unequivocal Remain party.
With the Brexit Party's retreat from Conservative-held seats, Boris Johnson may be breathing a sigh of relief. But even with his party's lead in the polls, the uncertainty of this election means the outcome is far from decided. Still to come, Canada's Trudeau unveils domestically focused cabinet. Canucks take on the Colorado Avalanche in Vancouver's Rogers Arena. Simon Fraser University Clan take on the Central Washington Wildcats. Toronto Raptors versus Orlando Magic, checking in after an impressive road trip. This is Eagle News. You're watching Eagle News. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's new cabinet has been sworn in. It's a slightly larger cabinet with 36 members. Trudeau has lost 20 seats on October 21st, reducing a once mighty juggernaut to a minority government. Trudeau says his new ministers are ready to roll up their sleeves and get to work.
I'm very excited today to be able to get down to work the way Canadians asked us to in this last election, to pull together the country, to focus on issues of economic growth for the middle class, to fight climate change, and to keep Canadians and their communities safe.
Trudeau has moved rising star Chrystia Freeland from the Foreign Affairs portfolio to a new role healing the country's internal divisions. She has also been promoted to deputy leader. Freeland will work alongside new Environment Minister Jonathan Wilkinson, trying to mend fences with Western provinces alienated by Ottawa's environmental policies.
Chrystia and I have worked very closely on some of the biggest files facing Canada and the world, but particularly Canada and the United States. And our ability to work well together on these issues that quite frankly, touch national unity, touch energy and environment, touch relations with all provinces and all regions of this country, is going to be an extremely important thing at a time where we see some very different perspectives across the country that need to be brought together.
Trudeau admits it's going to be a challenge, but insists he wants the country to rely less on the energy industry.
As we move towards a lower carbon economy, it's going to be important to lean on the kind of innovation and technology that Albertans and Saskatchewanians and people right across the country have been contributing to creating and delivering for the benefit of not just the industry and the jobs it creates, but all Canadians. We recognize we need to move towards a lower carbon economy, but we also see Alberta and Saskatchewan as an essential element in moving forward in a way that brings all Canadians along.
Our particular worry for his chastened Liberals is the emergence of a separatist movement in the western province of Alberta, where the party was shut out at the ballot box. Canucks take on the Colorado Avalanche in Vancouver's Rogers Arena. Eagle News correspondent Anthony Sevilla has this report.
After the Canucks' late third period push forced the game into overtime, Nathan MacKinnon and the Colorado Avalanche stunned the fans at Rogers Arena, ending the game with a 5-4 win in overtime. Avs forward Nathan MacKinnon was the X-factor for Colorado, who scored the game-winning goal in OT for his second goal of the night, which earned him first star of the game. An injury-riddled Colorado Avalanche team came into Rogers Arena to face the Vancouver Canucks. Among those injured for the Avalanche were Avs captain Gabriel Landeskog and goaltenders Philip Grubauer and Pavel Francouz. Despite the injuries, Nathan MacKinnon and rookie defenseman Cale Makar led Colorado with a combined 7 points among the two skaters. MacKinnon had 2 goals and an assist, while Makar added a game-high 4 assists. Vancouver had trouble generating any offense throughout the entire first period. They were limited to just 4 shots on goal after 20 minutes. However, the Canucks have proven they always battle back. They outshot Colorado 32-23 to end the game, despite only 4 shots on net in the first period, cutting a 2-goal deficit for the 8th time in 21 games. The game's momentum completely shifted in the third period after Vancouver would score back-to-back goals to tie up the game. Vancouver's last 2 goals to force overtime came from D-man Alex Edler and forward Brock Besser, only a minute and a half apart. After a shot from Canucks forward Elias Pettersson was blocked by Avs forward Matt Calvert off the side of his helmet, Calvert never got up during that play. There was much controversy as Vancouver capitalized and took advantage of the momentum. Despite Calvert down on the ground injured, including blood on the ice, the play was not stopped due to Vancouver holding possession. The final play sparked much noise in both clubs' locker rooms post-game.
We all know it's a dangerous sport and we love it, but when a puck goes into somebody's face, like, there's no point of like trying to win some time anywhere. Like, just feel like just blow the whistle, get the guy out so he can get some help as fast as possible. You don't know what can happen, so yeah, that's my take on it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, that situation with Calvi. Be nice to get a whistle there for his own safety. It's not even about the goal. It's just, you know, we got a guy laying there, not moving, bleeding out the side of his head. It's tough. But yeah, obviously it's good to get the win.
Personally, I really don't know the rules. I don't know if it's possession or what it is, so it's hard to say. And you know, obviously it sucks when you see someone down with a cut or getting hit in the face by a puck or whatever it was.
You know, my understanding is if you have the puck with possession, you know, you don't blow the whistle. And right or wrong, that's the way the rule's been for a while. And you know, we got fortunate tonight. You don't like to see it. Someone laying down hurt like that, though.
Avs forward Matt Calvert was helped off the ice after that play in the third period. He headed straight to the locker room and did not return. Calvert was immediately put on concussion protocol and was ruled out indefinitely with no timetable for his return. The Avalanche dialed in during overtime despite a frustrating end to the third period. Nathan MacKinnon continued his stellar play, ended the game just 37 seconds into overtime for his second of the game to claim the 5-4 victory over the Vancouver Canucks. McKinnon's 2 goals tonight increased his potential to 28 and officially moved him up to 6th in NHL scoring. Vancouver and Colorado will meet 2 more times this season. However, the longtime rivals will have a long wait until March for the rematch, which will take place right here at Rogers Arena.
Anthony Sevilla, Eagle News, 1/25.
In the final game of the season, Simon Fraser University Clan take on the Central Washington Wildcats. Here's Eagle News correspondent Zolti Horvath with the details.
It was senior night in Burnaby, BC, as the Simon Fraser University Clan hosted the Central Washington Wildcats in the final game of the season. The Wildcats came away with a 51-14 victory and a share of the conference title.
Prior to the game, in the scattered downpour at Swangard Stadium, SFU seniors were introduced individually in what would be their final game as college athletes. A majority of the seniors gave their favorite moment of their careers as the win earlier in the season against Azusa Pacific. This would end up being the only win of the season for the Clan. Throughout the game, SFU gave it all they had to try and stop Central Washington from winning their share of the conference title. Early in the first quarter, though, the Wildcats blocked a punt and returned it for a touchdown to put the first points on the board. SFU running back Solomon Hines nearly tied the game shortly after with a 62-yard run for a touchdown that was eventually called back due to holding. Despite the big run being called back, the redshirt freshman had a decent day with 135 yards on 22 carries. After freshman quarterback Brandon Nixich left the game, senior quarterback Mihai Lapust came in and eventually drove SFU 70 yards on 12 plays, finishing off with a 10-yard touchdown pass to conference-leading receiver Ryzen John. Unfortunately for SFU, it was all Central Washington from there on out. SFU would score another short touchdown in the second quarter, but after being down 28-14, the Wildcats scored 3 more touchdowns and a field goal to ice the game. Although this was a home game for the school branded as Canada's NCAA team, being the only NCAA school outside of the United States, they have played a majority of their games at Swangard Stadium off campus. This is due to their on-campus field being renovated and turned into a multi-use stadium, seating roughly 1,800 fans.
As the Clan head into the offseason with only 1 win on their record, they will look ahead to playing on campus next year as their new stadium is scheduled to open in the summer. Zolti Horvath, Eagle News, 1/25.
Toronto Raptors versus Orlando Magic, checking in after an impressive road trip. Here's Eagle News correspondent Adian Pangalinan for the report.
The Raptors take on the Orlando Magic for what will be their second game home following a challenging 5-game road trip. This is the second time these teams will meet since the first round of last season's playoffs, where the Raptors won the series 4-1. The Raptors look to overcome the Orlando Magic before they head off to Atlanta to face the Atlanta Hawks.
Even without veteran players Kyle Lowry and Serge Ibaka, the team won an impressive 3 out of 5 games on their Western Conference road trip. the Raptors have put the league on notice by removing any doubt critics may have had about this team. The Raptors reinforce the old saying, never underestimate the heart of a champion. Speaking of champions, the Raptors made headlines for their decision to not give out championship rings to Jonas Valanciunas, DeLon Wright, and CJ Miles, who were moved at the trade deadline last season. Though this is unpopular amongst fans, the move was necessary to bring in former All-Star Marc Gasol from the Memphis Grizzlies. Gasol played a huge role throughout the championship run with his veteran leadership and defensive abilities. In Wednesday night's contest, the Raptors won 113-97, maintaining their perfect record at home and earning their 10th win of the season. Fred VanVleet led the way with a game-high 24 points, while 4 other Raptors scored in double digits. The Magic were without Nikola Vucevic and Aaron Gordon, who exited the game due to injury early on in the first half. Nick Nurse commented on the team's play.
A little bit. I thought we didn't execute a bunch of our schemes early defensively. We just had some breakdowns. You could see some clear lane layups in the half court, which we don't like to see very often, if ever. But those guys provided a nice punch, and then the starters came back in and started playing. And it wasn't the prettiest game, I don't think, but I thought we played awfully hard and played really hard in stretches, so that was good to see.
The Raptors enter a stretch of the season where they play 7 out of the next 9 games at home, starting last Monday when they defeated the Hornets. After defeating the Magic, they look to prolong their undefeated home record as they host the 76ers this coming Monday. This will be a rematch of last season's Eastern Conference semifinals when the Raptors won the series with a game-clinching shot by Kawhi Leonard. But first, the Raptors head to Atlanta to face a scrappy Hawks team. For more NBA coverage, visit EBCSI for more highlights and stories around the sports world. From Scotiabank Arena, I'm Adian Pangilinan, Eagle News, 1 with 25.
Up next, Cirque du Soleil's Lucia makes debut in Vancouver. You're watching Eagle News. This is Eagle News. I'm Kenny Aquino. Great music and breathtaking performances. Eagle News correspondent Archie Rose Natividad-Yi takes us into the world of Lucia. Archie?
The circus comes to Vancouver, and we got a behind-the-scenes look of the Cirque du Soleil production, Lucia. Lucia is based on various themes linked to the culture, history, and mythology of Mexico. Lucia debuted in April 2016 and is Cirque du Soleil's 38th original production since 1984. Did you know the entire production process takes about just over a year from conception to final production? Lucia is a show that brings you to imaginary Mexico where light, luz in Spanish, and lluvia, which is rain, soothes the soul. Interwoven between the awe-inspiring set designs are the breathtaking circus acts of the show. The circus acts include the heart-stopping Russian swing, mind-boggling contortionist, trapeze, aerial straps, and many more. We got to meet with lead character Shelley Epstein to tell us more about her experience.
In Lucia, my character is called the Running Woman. She is part monarch, part Tarahumara ultramarathon running tribe. They're a tribe from Mexico. And so the monarch represents the link between, obviously, Cirque du Soleil is a Canadian company, and the theme of our show is Mexico. And the monarch butterfly migrates from Canada to Mexico. So that's like a nice subtle link between the two. She's kind of like a tour guide throughout the show and is here and there. It's really fun.
The magic behind Cirque du Soleil shows is its ability to amaze, resonate, and leave a lasting experience with the audience. When the circus entertainment company started in the 80s in Quebec City, it set out to invoke the imagination, provoke the senses, and evoke the emotions of people around the world. Its influence reaching as far as encouraging those to reach for their dreams and quite possibly join the circus.
Once upon a time, I was that little girl sitting in the audience watching my first Cirque du Soleil show in absolute awe, and I was like, oh, that's what I want to do, and that's when I realized there was a career, and if it's something you see and you're inspired and it's something you want to do, like by all means, like work hard pays off, like follow that dream. And honestly, this was a dream and now it's my reality, so I couldn't be happier, and it's possible.
Lucia will be in Vancouver for 3 months and will be traveling to Europe for the next leg of their tour. Archie Rose Natividad Yi for Eagle News. I'm 1 with 25.
That is this week's Eagle News. Join us next week for stories that matter to you. Visit our websites at eaglenews.net and eaglenewslive.com. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/eaglenews and on Facebook at facebook.com/eaglenews. Thank you for watching. I am Kenny Aquino. I am 1 with 25.